Welcome back to the Brotherhood Blitz, where digital playbooks meet real passion. Every week, we break down the storylines, the strategy, and the pure chaos that only a simulation league can deliver. And the best part? You can jump into the action yourself, create your player, get recruited through the league's Discord, and watch your journey unfold live on Twitch as you battle teams across the league. I'm here with my brother and co host 409K, and we're about to break down all the action.
Hey, it's a very special episode we got in store for y'all. Kind of different than what we've normally done, but it's still going to be all the quite same action and discussions that we normally do.
A very special episode to say the least. Very exciting episode as we have our first ever special guest. And I think the league will absolutely love the special guest. And without further ado, everyone, welcome Cameron Duty.
Hey, guys, thank you for having me. It is a pleasure. It's an honor to be the first guest. I'm such a big fan of this podcast and what you guys do. It's essential listening every week for me.
Yeah,
Yeah, we
it's
appreciate that.
it's yeah, like my brother said, we appreciate it, and it's I don't think we could have really a better first guest. You have been great on the call, calling all these games all season. It's been fun to listen to and exciting to see where you go from here.
I appreciate that. It's nice to have a home here in the VGL, and really, truly, and I won't take very long to say this, but from game one that I had a chance to call, I've always had a love for broadcasting, and this group certainly, made me feel right at home from the very beginning. So it's easy when you're surrounded by a good bunch of folks such as yourself.
I definitely have appreciated you being someone that kind of goes hand in hand in helping in the broadcast department. You were a huge addition to having people to call games where we're not having, the Kirk Herbstreit and whoever call the games and their boring play calls.
Yeah, I was instantly connected to the league just from watching the gameplay and the experience. So when the advertisement popped up on my Facebook, it just led me to the link to check you all out, and then after that, I said I gotta get in contact with somebody to see if I can, get on the call and be a part of this in some way.
And it was a great thing that you were able to see the advertisement for the league and kind of get into it, and even have a player in the league, your wide receiver. So it's it's been, like I said, a nice addition and a nice touch, and we can't wait to hear you call more games in the future.
Well, thank you. Again, it's a pleasure to be here. I've even got my wife drafted into it, also in Louisville. So it was a fun first year, excuse me. And like I said, I'm like you guys, a lot more in store. Can't wait for the next season already. But, like we said, we're here to talk about a pretty big event coming up a little later tonight.
Oh, definitely, and the championship game, the game we've been waiting on all season for the past 3+ months, comes in to an end tonight.
Yes, and as we have a very hard fought battle for both teams to even get to this point, as we will, kind of get to here later in this episode. But yeah, we have Florida Atlantic and Miami, the All Florida National Championship.
Truly, I think it's going to be such an exciting moment when we do finally get this game kicked off. We're Lucas Oil Stadium, the big, main attraction here for this game on this Thursday evening. You've got two teams that, as you guys and I both have talked about, came in here um, with playing with having to get some momentum on their side, right? FAU, we talked about coming into the playoffs just kind of squeaking in, but then they went on a tear. And Miami as well had a couple bumps in the road this season, but the main point is, and I know we'll get to it, guys, but like you all have discussed, they were able to put it together and when it counted most and go on a tear. Really, it's been fun to watch them get to this All Florida Bowl here.
Yeah, the All Florida Bowl, and a rematch from Week 9 of the regular season as well, where Miami took that win. But why don't we quickly go over just how the playoffs have shaped up to this point, and then we'll kind of get into a little bit of how the semifinals went.
Yeah, the
Absolutely.
playoffs started um, week 10. Let's see, let me pull this up. Yeah, so the bubble games play in as Florida Atlantic was actually in those games, and Miami had a bye. Florida Atlantic had to play LSU, the defending national champions, and pulled that one off in a 42-35 win.
A
It
close
was
game too.
incredible. Yeah, excuse me, Kay. My apologies there, buddy. But I was just going to say from the booth, first playoff game getting to call, and then you have FAU come in and knock off the defending champions. I think that set the tone for the type of playoffs that this was really going to be.
I agree. Um, you know, LSU is the heavy favorite. Like we mentioned, FAU barely squeaking by was the last seed in the playoffs, and getting a win over defending national champions and holding them to under 40 points and scoring 40 themselves is quite a big accomplishment.
And then we had on the other side of the bracket, you had Rutgers and Arkansas, with Rutgers pulling that one off 27-24.
Rutgers, man, able to somehow manage to get the upset even as the higher seed. Arkansas, I believe, was the also heavy favorite going into that game. Just a battle of defenses, a battle of quarterbacks and the different styles of offenses they like to play. Rutgers are leaning a little bit more to the run game to kind of get a chunk of their yardage and a chunk of their points. While Arkansas is kind of a bit more balanced, but still leaning more towards the air when it comes to their offensive production. And Rutgers having a phenomenal turnaround from season 6 to season 7 and getting a win over Arkansas.
Yeah, that was such an interesting. That was the start of what really was an incredible run for the Scarlet Knights. I mean, one game away from making it to the VGL Season 7 championship, and it really started at the end of the season. Trash Panda really got on a roll, and if they figured out how to complement his style of play with the type of offense they were wanting to run. Kelby Big Soldier, for example, really good. Those two complemented each other perfectly. And really, I think in the end, when it came down to it, in that game between Arkansas and themselves, it came down to turnovers. Rain Alexander had the three touchdowns, but he also had the two interceptions that come at very costly times. Panda just did a good job of protecting the football, able to do that with the mobility that he had, and yeah, it really set the Scarlet Knights up for a pretty impressive run.
And I'd like to think also going into Trash Panda, he hasn't been really known to have to rely on the passing attack to keep themselves in games because the rushing attack is just that dominant. I mean, in that game against Arkansas, he had 41 passing attempts, which is, I think, some of the most that he's thrown all season long. Now, the completion percentage wasn't to be desired, but still had a pretty impressive showing through the air that game.
Going on to round two of the playoffs, this is where shocking things started to happen. Um, as the first game we'll talk about was not so shocking as Miami took out Maryland 65-24 in a moderate wind blowout.
Wasn't the type of game I was expecting.
No.
Yeah, Miami, you know, I I figured Miami was going to take this one, and I think a lot of people did, but I don't think people thought a playoff game was going to go this one direction.
Yeah, I certainly didn't. I have to say that I thought that it would be another one of those games that would come down, to the fourth quarter, a fourth quarter push maybe. I did feel like Miami in the end, and I think it's okay to say this now with the game, over and done with, but it did feel like Miami had, a slight upper hand against Maryland there, and you felt like in the end they would be able to overtake them, but the receiving core just went on a tear. Jay's Uslow, 4 touchdowns on 12 receptions for Jay's Uslow. I mean, what more can you say? Just an incredible game and helped really put him over the top.
Yeah, and if you also go into that game as well, I mean, at one point, Maryland was down, what, three, four scores before half, and then managed to bring it up to, I believe almost tied going into half when they had 24 points, and then proceeded to not score for the rest of the second half.
Yeah, it made a huge difference. I mean, like you said, when you got to play against a team like Miami and you're so far behind the eight ball, you got to find a way to keep them from scoring, and then you have to score yourself. It's a really daunting task.
I mean, Miami even had a DN get a pick six, which was wild to see.
Yeah, I remember that.
And Nico Dennis with the big boy pick six. And well, boy, I think the game was well out of hand at that point. But it just shows you just how complete of a team Miami is on both sides of the ball, and uh, they've proven that so far throughout the season.
Absolutely. As the next game we had a little bit of a surprise as the first shocking upset we had in round two is we had Rutgers pulling off the upset against number one Virginia Tech, 28-25, in another moderate win game.
Yeah, Cam, I'll have you actually you talk a little bit about that. I know throughout that game, the wind played a big factor in just how Virginia Tech's style of offense normally runs, and them having to kind of change it up as the game went on.
Yeah, that was Stacy Smith, who just 3 weeks maybe prior to this. I know I'm kind of guesstimating here on the spot, but just a handful of weeks prior to this game had tied a VGL record for most touchdowns in a single game with 8. I remember us discussing this around that time, and pinpoint passing accuracy by Stacy Smith all season long, and it was just so uncharacteristic. It being the moderate wind playing a big factor in it. But there was turnovers. There was 3 interceptions on the day. Again, the Scarlet Knights, their defense, able to take advantage of the situations that Virginia Tech gave them. And Virginia Tech was not a team that we had seen really have many chinks in the armor, so to speak. And when you started seeing the turnovers take place, and again, it comes down to when they got behind the Scarlet Knights, their ground and pound attack with Panda and Kelby Big Soldier, it just proved to be too much in the end. And you're right, they made a good run of it at the end of the game, and it was in the balance for the most part. But when it just come down to it, sitting there watching that game from the booth, and it just felt like nothing really clicked the entire night for Virginia Tech. And you have games like that.
Yeah, I agree wholeheartedly. And going on to the where Stacey Smith tied the single game passing touchdown record, that was all the way back in week 6.
Yeah. It was incredible, to see that. I mean, at that point in time, if you had asked me, off the recording, who I felt was going to be, the team to beat, I thought then and there it was going to be them. And that goes to show you the competitive nature of this league. There is no front runner, and you can be feast or famine. One week you can be on the top of the food chain, and then the next you're knocked off. And that game was a prime example of it.
Let me agree.
Yeah, going on to the next game, another moderate win game, but this time we had a little bit of a light rain, messy game as Texas took on North Carolina, and Texas taking that one 41-20.
Yeah, being being the head coach of Texas, I won't get too much into it, but it was a tough game to game plan for between myself and my brother. Moderate wind, light rain kind of changes the complexity and the offenses that really North Carolina and Texas both run, and there's a lot of weird stuff went on through that game in terms of we had a kick return touchdown, uh, fumbles. The rain played like I said, a big part into the game and how the game kind of shaped out. Just special teams and kind of defense was the big key for Texas getting the victory.
Yeah, it was. I remember, just from my recollections, you had True Powers was the MVP of that game. You talk about that defense for Texas. 3 sacks on the day. Um, or no, actually, excuse me, that's actually 2 sacks on the day, 3 TFLs on the day. Um, he just set the tone, and it was an aggressive approach that really just wore out North Carolina. And as we've seen a lot in this playoffs, same type of scenario when they have to go up against a team that's really cooking like Texas was at this point. Tough to overcome. They just couldn't get anything going. No momentum on their side whatsoever.
And we'll get into the final game of Week 11. Is number 10 Florida Atlantic against the number 2 seed who had a first round bye and the Hawaii Rainbow Warriors, where Florida Atlantic gets the shocking upset and a blowout victory of Hawaii 56-24.
Yeah, this another shocking game, um, as I believe we both had Hawaii taking this one, and it turned out to not even be close, really, as Florida Atlantic 56 points against number 2 Hawaii, and which was a shock to me for sure.
Was that was the game that Curie Nova there went off, 6 touchdowns on the day. You know, it's hard to you can't keep up with a player or a team like that that's on all cylinders to that point. Try as Hawaii might, it was a lopsided victory for sure.
I believe that's the game. She also had almost 50 pass attempts, and it wasn't even halftime yet.
Yeah, yeah, that's right. That was it. Ended up 42 of 50 on the day.
And 84% completion percentage and barely missing any throws, and just was able to kind of get their team in solid field position throughout the entire game. And FAU's defense as well coming up huge with the 3 interceptions.
Going on to the semifinals. This is where I believe we have not talked about in the last episode at all, as we have Rutgers versus Miami and Florida Atlantic versus Texas. And Kay, if you want to start us off with that first Rutgers versus Miami game.
Yeah, we had number 8 Rutgers taking on number 4 Miami at Soldier Field in Chicago. The first of the 2 semifinal games was Miami comes up with the victory and heads to the season 7 national championship with a win of 37-19 and a solid effort from Rutgers to try and claw back into that game towards the end.
Yeah, it really was a game, like you said, guys, of Rutgers having to claw back in it at the very end. Miami come out and just you know, dominated from the first kickoff, and it was a. I remember the first drive with just how effective that they were, and these games are so fresh on our mind as we just finished from over there in Soldier Field. We're here in Lucas Oil Stadium now, but it was so effective on that initial drive. I mean, they moved with ease, and we will see that at times in the VGO. The first drive comes out looking flawless, then things start to tighten up. That really didn't become the case, and for the Scarlet Knights, unfortunately, it was either the first 2 or 3 possessions of that game. They had to punt it away, and by that point, Miami's got a 2+ score lead, and like we said, the theme, with these teams, you get behind to them, it's very hard to make a game of it.
That's the good thing with Miami is like I talked about at the beginning of the episode is just how complete of a team they are on both sides of the ball. They can run it, they can pass it. I mean, just all firing on all cylinders. And I believe Miami through at one point in that game was up what 24-0 over
Hmm.
Rutgers,
Yeah.
and it just shows you that they have ability to excuse my language beat the crap out of teams. To be honest.
Hmm. Well, they can wear them down, and I think that's the thing that we have seen is it. You'll watch these teams, the energy just by about the third quarter, the life's drained out of them, especially when you have to defend every single, piece of the puzzle when it's, played to perfection as it was a lot of this season. It takes a lot out of the team that's trying to claw their way back in.
Definitely agree. And Dylan, if you want to take us off into the next game, the final game of the semifinals.
Yeah, the probably the more definitely closer game of the two, as Florida Atlantic takes on Texas, and which was quite the upset as Florida Atlantic wins that one 34-33 in a very close, hard fought battle. Texas, they came out strong, went up 14-0, I believe, in the first quarter, and as we almost had a first ever punt return touchdown as Andrew Powell came up just, I believe, 2 yards short. Uh,
2 yards short. Yep. It would have been
yeah,
an 80-yard punt return
Yeah.
touchdown.
yeah, and yeah, that it was 7-0 at that point, and then Texas took an easy 2 yard touchdown, I believe, the next play to Jason Pinkard to go up 14-0, and then they kind of, you know, Florida Atlantic settled down, said, you know what, we got here for a reason, and went on to score, I believe, 28 unanswered points.
I think
Yes,
so. Yeah.
that's right. Reeled off four scores, and really felt like no time.
Yeah, pick six thrown in there at one point. Um, yeah, quite the battle, and hats off to them. Had a great game plan, and yeah, they moved on to the national championship.
And Cam, I'll let you get into kind of your thoughts on that game, but I'll quickly give my my thoughts from a head coaching perspective.
Sure.
Hats off to Vex and the entire staff over at FAU. Definitely not the way we wanted the season to go and the way for it to end, especially with the, you know, being one of the top teams all season long, and then the way the season ends to lose by 1 point. Uh, Very bittersweet, to be quite honest. But one team had to win. Not every game goes your way, and uh, hats off to y'all.
Well, truly, hats off to you guys for what was an incredible run as well. As a fan of the VGL and being someone who had a chance to call the larger majority of these games this season, it was a lot of fun watching you guys go to work. And it really, I still feel like it could have went either way. It was so close. That game, it was a strike for a strike. Each time that, it felt like one team was starting to pull away a little bit, the other team would come back. We saw that trend the entire game. Yeah, like you said, the two scores that Texas got right off the bat, and then, FAU reels off four touchdowns to then go up two scores. Texas comes back, and literally it come down to who had the ball on the very last opportunity with the most time left to work with, and it was a field goal in the end that did it. And but truly, that's to me, that's the kind of championship football you want. That's the kind of championship football you look for in a league. I won't get long winded, but I'll just put it to you this way: you can find it here. These games like that leave you on the edge of your seats, and it was very exciting.
Yeah, and also just the play calling at the end kind of played into the downfall of Texas losing as well. I mean, we went for it on 4th and 12
Yeah.
at one point. We had another fourth down where we threw a screen and or got 9 yards or 1 yard short. Uh, Ended up on that fourth, I believe that 4th and 12. Beasley come up with a crucial, catch in traffic and gets down inside the 5, and then we proceeded to run it three straight times and took like almost no time off the clock. and then gave the ball right back to FAU, who just drove down the field with no time left and kicked a field goal to win it.
Yeah, and I know that you talk about the fourth down calls, but in this day and age of football, when analytics come into play, and on top of that, just the fact that if that goes good, you know, you're the hero, right? And then that's how those calls always go. If that call or one of the two calls are converted, we're looking at probably a different VGL championship that we're going to be talking about in the next minute or so. It's just the competitive nature of the game right now.
Yeah, I definitely agree. And yeah, speaking of the analytics, yeah, you have uh, stat wise, you have a better percentage of converting. It's better to honestly to go for fourth down in most cases than it is to punt it because
Yeah.
the net yardage on punts sometimes doesn't equal up to what you could potentially get if you were to get the fourth down.
Yeah, I totally understood the call. It just didn't go, in favor of Texas there, and it did play a big role at the end of the game, but I still understand the reason for doing it.
Yeah, the more I think about it, and I guess in the timeline of how the game was going, I guess we wanted to try and increase the lead to increase our, odds of pulling the win off. Just
Yeah,
guy give credit to FAU for the defense that they played throughout that game, especially in that second half, and were able to get the ball last with no and leave with no time left.
indeed.
Yeah, and I'll touch on this real quick. Um, I simmed a lot for FAU, and I had some people reach out because you can see when somebody's on the emulator on Discord, and they were like, "Hey man, why are you still simming? It's just FAU." Uh, yeah, in this league, you really can't overlook anybody, and this championship matchup proves that. FAU barely making playoffs at number 10, and now we're here with them sitting one win away from a national championship.
It's wild the turnaround that they've had from the regular season to making the national championship, like you said. So uh, curious to see how this game is gonna go as we'll jump right into it and kind of talk about the season 7 national championship as we're gonna crown a new champion. Both teams have never won one so far.
Yeah, as we talked about a
Y-
little bit earlier, it's the All Florida Bowl, so it's going to be exciting to see um, how these teams come out. If they're going to, try something different and try to surprise the other team, and yeah, Cam, if you want to give us your thoughts on it.
Yeah, certainly. I will tell you that I'm a big pro football and college football too, but just a historian of the game because it is my favorite sport that I've ever encountered. I love a lot of different sports, but there's nothing like football to me. I if I want to give a historical comparison to this, I kind of think of, and I'm sure you guys remember, I'm 36 years old. I'll just go ahead and tell you my age. So I grew up in the 90s, football golden era, as a lot of people like to call it, right? And I remember at the turn of the century, you had the Tennessee Titans and the St. Louis Rams that played in the Super Bowl. You all may remember it as the 1 yard short game, when it came down to that very, very last play for St. Louis to win. But this feels like that type of a season where both of the teams that were represented in that national championship, they had bumps in the road that they had to get through to get there, and they came in maybe in an underdog position, right? But in the end, when it came down to it, they got momentum, they got efficiency on their side. I think of FAU especially in the situation right here, like you said, coming in at 4-5 to get in, and then they reel off three straight in an effort. And you didn't just get there by. They certainly didn't breeze their way through. Nobody did, but I mean, you had to beat, Hawaii, for instance, and you had to beat a very tough Texas team. A lot of people would have said it could have easily been, a Hawaii Texas matchup, or in the or Virginia Tech, but they took down the best of the best to get here. And for Miami, I'll say the same thing. They had a couple bumps in the road this year too. I think they lost, was it three straight at one point? And they come up for air, but then after that, they just they whatever they did, and I know you guys can tell me the insight, which I'll allow you to do here, but something in those sims in that prep work, it clicked, and again, their postseason's been spectacular.
Yeah, and with Miami, yeah, I only lost they lost 3 games in the regular season, but they lost back to back in week 6 and week 7 in a
Okay,
23-point blowout loss to UNC, and then losing by 10 to Rutgers, who they go on to beat in the semifinals.
that's right. Yeah, the opening bout was a loss. If I'm not, that's what it was. Okay, I'm corrected there. Thank you.
Yeah, their first loss was week 1 to Texas.
Okay, that's right.
But with FAU, I mean, yeah, they didn't have the greatest of seasons. They're kind of wishy-washy throughout the season. I mean, it was win one where they had a statement win in week 1 versus Michigan, winning by 39. But then it was win one, lost one, win one, lost one. I mean, it's just back and forth until the final 2 weeks of the season where they, lost back-to-back games in week 8 and week 9. It just seems like a switch kind of, or a light bulb kind of flickered in the coaching staff of FAU and in Vex's head, that they were able to pull off these wins. I mean, in the playoffs, they haven't scored below 30.
That's right.
And, 42 against LSU, 56 against Hawaii, and then 34 against Texas. I mean, all 3 teams you held below 40. One team you held to one of the fewest points they've had all season, and quite, or at least in quite a while. It's the turnaround that FAU has had in these playoffs is amazing to watch from an outsider and bystander kind of perspective. That they have had the toughest road to get to the championship, and if you look at on paper between the FAU and Miami, they're a lot closer on paper than people realize.
Yes, I agree.
Yeah, it's going to be a lot closer of a game than I think a lot of people are expecting. I think a lot of people are going to expect Miami to come out and just score too quick for FAU. But exactly like you just said, the way FAU has even got to this point, they're playing scarier football than Miami right now, and that's for sure.
Yeah, well, going kind of the next portion of talking about these championships. We talked about each team's path and how they kind of got to this point. Let's talk about some key players for both teams and both sides of the ball, and then also their key to victory for both teams. Cam, if you kind of want to lead this off and kind of give us your thoughts, and ask us kind of what we think if you want.
Yeah, certainly. I would love to. For me, I'll just spotlight a couple of players really, really quickly. Um, we'll start with FAU. We got to look obviously at the quarterback position with Kerry Nova. What kind of day Kerry Nova can have is going to be determined on this Miami defense, which is certainly no slouch. But I think Nova and Jack Boy Luca are a couple of names that come to mind for me. That connection has been, I think, I don't know, the turning point of this season to a point. How they have been able to get on this really good chemistry as this season has progressed. Been hard to stop too. There's some Magnum McGavin, another example. I think those three to me on the offensive side for FAU is what you have to look for. Gideon Greathorn's gonna have a big impact as well. Sakalata on defense, just a couple key players there for me. For them, Miami, of course, you got Ajax Legend, you got Sidney S. Givens, Jays Uslow. Um, Kalen Brannick Jen went off, by the way, in that semifinals matchup. Who I think that may have been one of his most effective games of the entire season. He's got speed, he's got strength, he's a stout, stocky halfback, almost a fullback, really, kind of the Mike Allstott era. He just is tough to bring down. So in that regard too, I think this is going to be has the chance, in my opinion, to be an offensive shootout. How do you guys feel? Do you all feel that way, or do you feel like it's going to be more determined by the defensive side of things?
No,
I think it. Yeah, well, I'll let you get into it actually.
yeah, I 100% agree with you. I think this is going to be very high scoring. I think it's going to maybe start off a little slow, each team, filling the other team out. And then at some point, you know, they're going to start taking some shots. And both of these teams are in air raid books. You have a very scary Texas Tech book and a very scary SMU book. And I will just go ahead and say this: these two books are my two least favorite books to play against. And
Oh,
yeah, they're very scary. They're very explosive, and I think that's going to show later on tonight.
I have actually a different standpoint on on this game. I think it's gonna be a defensive game. I think both these defenses, I mean, they're the top two rated defenses in the league. Uh, you know, both have had games to where they have shut the other team out, and in the style of offense that they played. Both are playing air raids. Both have some of the better secondaries in the league. I mean, if you look at Miami's secondary, they don't have a single player not rated 99. And you go and look at, FAU and their secondary, I mean, their entire defense is almost rated 99. Now they have two players on their defense and two of their corners who aren't 99 overall. So I think this is going to come down to, can the defense get takeaways? Can they force, mistakes, to Kiri Nova? Can they force mistakes to Ajax and Ajax Legend and the Miami offense? And the sneaky part I think will go into like the offense is CBJ on Miami. If the run game can get going and they can control the pace at which the game can go, Miami has a very good shot to walk away with their first championship. Now, on the other hand, FAU has kind of changed their style of offense, in the season, going, from a balanced, run-centric attack using Gideon Greathorn as the workhorse. Then they changed to more an air raid, using him more just as a another pass catcher, not really focusing on the run as much. I think Gideon more is going to be the playmaker in these check down, short yardage situations that is going to be key for getting those third down conversions and keeping drives alive.
Yeah, that's a great point. Um, and there's some things I definitely agree with you in that point. I do think the key to victory for both teams is the same thing. Both teams are going to have to come out and get their run game going. Once you get that going, both of these air raid offenses, open up bigger. You know, shake it up. You know, force these defenses to not know your next move, and I think that's going to be a key to to win this national championship.
yeah, those are, I mean, fantastic points, gentlemen. I mean, just great insight, as I think only you guys can give. And I think that sets us up for a. I'll just go ahead and throw it out there, and I'll ask you guys this question. Let's talk about our picks. When it all comes down to it, the final buzzer, the final seconds tick away. Who do you guys think is going to take this VGL championship home from Lucas Oil Stadium at the end of the night tonight?
Yeah,
Ooh,
if
boy.
you want to give us the first one.
Yeah, I'll be honored. I do agree with the kind of the stance that I think all three of us have gotten. It's going to be a lot closer game than most might think, even with Miami probably being the heavy favorites. Um, Defense, like I said, is going to be a big factor. Curious to see how the game plan and where both these teams are kind of going to look to try and get their production going on offense. I do think Miami is going to pull this one out, and I'm going to give a score. Now, I wouldn't give a score prediction, but kind of like a score margin, point differential prediction. I think Miami is only going to win by 3.
Hmm.
Yeah, I do think it's gonna be within one score for sure. Maybe like you said, 3 points or maybe even 4 points. With you know, it's gonna come down to, I think, the team that has the ball last is going to have to march down the field and either tie it up to bring it to OT, which would be awesome, back to back national championship overtimes, or it's going to force them to, go get a touchdown to win it. And um, I think, I do think I agree with you. I think Miami's going to take this one, um, but I would not be shocked. And, you know, as Miami is the heavy favorite, I don't think many people even remotely think FU has a chance. But I
No one thought
do.
they had a chance against the last three teams they
Exactly,
faced either.
exactly.
Yeah.
And but yeah, it's going to be a great close game, but I think Miami's going to win it by definitely within one score.
And I'll just say this too on top of that. I think the fascinating point about this championship game is the amount of storylines that we have going into it. Two teams that are looking at the opportunity to get their first VGL championship. On top of that, it is an all Florida Bowl, right? There are going to be bragging rights here. This has turned into, a rivalry championship. Which who doesn't love that? You win this game, you win the championship, and for the year or for the season rather, you take the crown of team of the state, so to speak. I think that's going to have a lot to do with it. There are going to be a lot of emotional factors that are in this game tonight, as well as the play calling, the simming that has led up to it, the practice, the just everything that's went in to preparing for this game tonight. And another thing, don't forget, with this being, Vex's swan song, right, as coach of FAU, that's another interesting story point too. So, we are not short of good talking points for this game, gentlemen. And I think you guys have touched on some great points there as well. I just wanted to throw that in there. I think there's so much to talk about in this game. We could be here for 2 hours if we wanted to, honestly.
I agree with that. There's just literally so much you could talk about in this game and really this season and how fantastic the season's been for everyone. And in my opinion, probably the more competitive than it was in season 6. I mean, teams that you would think that didn't have a shot at beating teams end up whipping teams pretty badly at points, or getting some close wins late in the game and making some key plays. I think overall the competitiveness and the coaching from every team in the league has kind of gotten so narrow and so close that it's hard to really just pick the better team all season long.
Yeah, I agree. It's definitely made it fun to coach in this league, and like you said, you never know, uh, exactly like what you said. You can't just always pick, the heavy favorite. The underdog in this league always has a chance, and that's exactly how FEU got to this point. And they have one more shot to pull off an upset in the biggest spotlight of the season, and it's going to be a great matchup, and I can't wait for this. I'll definitely be there, as we have, Cam will be in the booth for that game, and yeah, I'm excited for it.
And
Yeah.
Cam, if you have any kind of final words as we'll get ready for the national championship here in a bit. Yeah. Well, the floor is all yours.
Well, yeah, let me just say thanks to you guys for allowing me to be on this program that I admire so much. It truly is a very special way to end this season with you guys getting to do this. Hey, maybe this is something that we can start on a regular basis, make it a bit of a tradition as the championship games roll along. But always fun to talk to you guys. Like I said, two guys that I very much respect and admire for the way that you all carry yourselves in the league. And like I said, I love this program. I think that this, I want to say thanks to everybody in the league that's been again so good and kind to me. It's going to be a pleasure to be in the booth. This evening, got some nerves, obviously, personally, calling a championship game. There's excitement there too. I want to bring a good call to it for you guys. But in the end, it's just been a privilege, and I think we really are set up for one more game, for the record books tonight. So I just want to extend my gratitude. I appreciate you guys very, very much, and this is going to be a fun final night to cap what's been a tremendous season 7.
Yeah, it's been a great season. It's been a great listening to you, and we thank you for coming to us and having this great idea of yours and having you on the podcast as our first special episode. And I agree that would be awesome to make this a tradition thing. Every season for the championship, you come on and we talk about it, and it's been fun. Um, Definitely looking forward to more, and uh, yeah, thanks again.
And thank you, Cam. It's been a pleasure getting to talk to you and talk about something that all three of us are very passionate about and being one of our hobbies. Uh, it's been a fun season. After this episode airs, we'll have one more episode, and then we'll take a short hiatus during the off season, and we'll come back towards the end of recruiting, and we'll open back up with kind of our thoughts on that, and a lot in store for season 2 of the Brotherhood Blitz. Thank everyone for the kind words and tuning in and listening to us throughout the season. Being this is our first time doing this, or so we're still learning, still kind of getting the grasp of how things work in terms of making things as sounding good and from a quality standpoint, just being great. That's something that me and my brother always try to pride ourselves as doing our best and being great, trying to be great at everything we do. So we once again appreciate everyone and thank you for tuning in. This is the Brotherhood Blitz.